It is for sure a pretty terrifying experience, and it's funny. No matter how many times you experience it, the same feeling is there when it does come about. For me, typically, it's when I'm coming out of a dream. My eyes will open, and I see a dark figure somewhere in the room. Sometimes, in like the top corner up there, just kind of hovering, sometimes at the foot of the bed. And all I feel is like fear, like terror shooting down my spine, even though I know what it is, even though I can even tell myself, like, you've been through this, you know what this is. And all I can do is close my eyes. I can't move. I can't do anything. I'm basically stiff. And once my eyes close, the weird thing that happens that I haven't heard a whole lot of people talk about is I almost hear, like, it's almost as if something is whispering right here in my ear in some kind of weird tongue that I cannot understand or discern, or it's just, it's terrifying. It is. But it is, God, does it makes for some good inspiration. Makes for some real good content. And so, yeah, I'm just, out here trying to turn that into my superpower.
Everybody, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter, the author podcast. We get to talk to fascinating authors from around the world. And I love where this author's books have taken him, his writings, and his kind of he's very unique on where he promotes his books. And I think if you write in a similar vein that this author does, you might want to pick up on this. This is a great idea that you can put into place right away and meet your audience where they are. I think it's really, really great. Nick's here, and he's going to talk about the world he's created through his book and all the great stuff happening in his life as an author. Really excited to have him on the show. Nick, welcome to the podcast. Glad to have you on Living Next Chapter.
Thanks for having me on, Dave.
Excellent.
Really, really happy to be here.
Good. Tell everybody, Nick, where are you in this big world of ours?
Right now, I am in West Palm Beach, Florida.
Sounds terrible. I live in Canada, and that sounds just horrible to have such a beautiful place to live. Come on.
I know. I roll out of bed, and I'm like, oh, man, it's sunny again today.
Come on. That's way too predictable. No. You need some snow in your life, Nick. Come on. Yeah, get up here to Canada. We need you up here. Let's talk a little about your author journey, Nick. Like, I have authors that listen to this show, and they come here to meet people like you. Their early days in their journey, you're published, you're out there talking about your book, you're actively writing, and there's people listening, and they're like, oh, I wish I could do what Nick's doing. I have an idea for a story, but I don't even know where to start. So if you could listen to a podcast conversation before you started your journey, what would have been helpful to hear from an author before you started writing your book?
I would say that the passion grows as you tend to the body of work that you're creating. When I first started writing this, I was having fun. I without a doubt, I was writing about what I wanted to write about. If you're doing that, you can really put your passions into it. I've always been a fan of science fiction, and that's why I chose to write science fiction. But it started as something that was just cathartic. I was on a plane 3 to 5 days a week for my previous role at a medical device company, and that's a lot of plane time. Eventually, it got to a point where I had beaten Netflix. I'm downloading episodes to shows I don't even want to watch, and I just realized it was a huge waste of time. And so I started doing this as kind of just a creative outlet, just something to fill the time. And it was cathartic. And I thought, if this turns into nothing, whatever, I'm having fun doing it. And then as the book went on, I probably got through about halfway through the book, I realized that it was like, aside from family and things like that, it was all I was thinking about. It was all consuming in a way. And the passion really started to show itself on the page. And so the more you write and the more you get into it, as long as it is something that you truly care about and you're truly interested in, the passion will come, and then suddenly you're on a train that you can't even stop.
Or a plane you can't stop.
Or a
Yeah,
plane.
yeah, right. Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, you've taken writing to a whole new heights, which is great. I like that. And yay, there you go. That was a freebie. Yeah, when you run out of things to watch, you're like, what am I going to do with myself? And you have that kind of pent up time. You haven't really very little options being on the plane. So, yeah, like what a great time to leverage that and to start writing. Where did the idea of the story come from, though? Like, it's one thing to say I want to write, but like, how did the idea of the actual story of your book even come to you?
A combination of a lot of. It's never one thing, right?
Yeah.
It was a combination of a lot of things. So, some of the ideas were ideas that I had from as far back as high school. I've always been fascinated by mythology and ancient civilizations and all these different things that I had kind of built rough ideas around in my head and wanted to expound upon. And that was something I certainly had an opportunity to do in this book, which was kind of scratching that itch, to be frank.
Yeah.
And some of it came from, there was a lot going on in the world at the time that I really started writing this. This was really kind of like, I'd say the tail end of COVID, the COVID era, and, everything that had happened then, all the things that were happening around the world. And so that, current events were certainly something that had inspired the writing to a sense, or to a point, I guess. I had definitely, I transposed the events into the future, and it's not a one for one. And so, to an untrained eye, it may not even be recognizable, but the themes that are involved are certainly, transferable. And the other thing was I've just got some crazy recurring dreams. I experience sleep paralysis on a fairly regular basis.
Really?
And that was something that I wanted to incorporate, some elements of that. And so there is a little bit of, even though it is a sci-fi, I'd say it's a good mix between hard science fiction and space opera. It is character focused. You do get, the thrilling kind of ride of being in this world. But I take the time to explain the technologies, and you do get kind of like a cosmic thriller element from, I guess, the dream inspiration that I have.
You're the second author this week that has told me they have sleep paralysis. And I've never heard of it before. And when the other author that I met this week was explaining it, his version was terrifying. Like, that became his book. It became kind of the foundation of what he wrote. What is sleep paralysis for you? How does it show up for you? And kind of how did that also maybe lead into your book?
It is for sure a pretty terrifying experience. And it's funny, no matter how many times you experience it, the same feeling is there when it does come about. For me, typically, it's when I'm coming out of a dream.
Yeah.
My eyes will open, and I see a dark figure somewhere in the room. Sometimes, in like the top corner up there, just kind of hovering. Sometimes at the foot of the bed, and all I feel is like fear, like terror shooting down my spine. Even though I know what it is, even though I can even tell myself, like, you've been through this, you know what this is. And all I can do is close my eyes. I can't move. I can't do anything. I'm basically stiff. And once my eyes close, the weird thing that happens that I haven't heard a whole lot of people talk about is I almost hear like, it's almost as if something is whispering right here in my ear. In some kind of weird tongue that I cannot understand or discern, or it's just, it's terrifying. It is. But it is God, does it makes for some good inspiration.
Gosh.
Makes for some real good content. And so, yeah, I'm just, out here trying to turn that into my superpower,
So
I guess.
this other author I talked to, he had similar experience, but add on the fact that his dog, who never does this, was growling and staring off into the distance at something. And he's like, he had to get up. Finally, he was able to get up and get around and move around. But he's like going through the whole house with the dog because the dog was picking up on something. And adding that to what he was experiencing himself just changed him. like because the dog never does that. It's like once in a lifetime thing, right? But the dog was seeing something, he was experiencing something else. Put the two together, and that became the foundation of writing a book. So, very interesting.
Yeah. So, it's been a fun process. And then once again, like I've been a sci-fi fan since I was a young kid.
Yeah.
From Star Wars all the way up to the dystopian classics in literature. Your Frank Herbert's with Dune, George Orwell, Aldous Huxley, William Gibson with his Neuromancer series. That's also that he's basically kind of the godfather of cyberpunk.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to root my creation into the stuff that inspired, or root it from the stuff that inspired me. And add my own kind of flares to it from all of my experiences. And I take characters in the book and I actually base them on people that I know personally. So I'll take their personality or sometimes even their likeness and use it to create the character, because I feel like it adds an extra breath of life into the characters that you're following in the book, because it is multi-narrative. You do follow a number of different important characters throughout the world to really give you a scope of the full world building. And so it was important to me that they seem lifelike. And I do that by, basing them on personalities that I know incredibly well. Because then I can say, well, I know that person. I know how they would act in this situation, or, what kind of situation would they put themselves in? And, I've listened to a few episodes of your podcast, and I know that a lot of authors talk about the characters guiding them.
Yeah.
And I definitely think there's something real to that, in terms of fostering fostering real feeling in the reader that you're basically writing for.
Okay. Yeah. Do these people know that they are the basis of the characters? And they're like, hey, is that me on page 4? Yeah. That's you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Absolutely. Yeah. I usually talk with them beforehand.
Okay, good.
One of the things I actually started doing was, if you want the character to be real, what would that person want of that character?
Mm-hmm.
So I actually just had a meeting the other day with a good friend of mine for a character that probably won't even come about till book 4 in the series. And I said, what do you want your character to be like? Because I think their input is important as well into making a fully rounded character.
That's cool.
Not just mine.
Yeah.
It's you want to create a 3-dimensional character, and that's, I think, a good, for me at least, I think it is proven to be a really solid way of doing so.
I think it's really good to connect with the audience too. Like they feel like they can see and feel that person. They can connect with them from a reader's perspective, right? And there's a bridge being built with them. The reality of that character, they don't seem so disconnected from someone they might know in real life. I like that. If you ever do a book around a crazed podcaster, and you're looking for somebody to be a character for your show as a podcaster in one of your books, like book 30, maybe, hey, I'll put my hand up. Hey, if you need somebody, let me know.
You want to know what's funny? I already have a character like that.
Good. There you
I
go.
do. I already have a
Come
character in the
on.
book, and he's basically he's like a pirate radio host. So
Oh.
we're talking far future society. Vitalerium's supposed to take place 700 years in the future, and takes place on a planet that is under the, I guess, under the thumb of an authoritarian regime. And so he's basically been outlawed, and so he's in hiding, but he's still, basically putting out content to whoever will listen, exposing a lot of things, putting out theories on what's really going on, um, you know, doing leaks and things like that. So and I did base his personality on a podcaster that I am very fond of, but that's probably the only character who probably doesn't know.
Okay.
But
I like it.
and
Good.
I'd say he's like a mix of that guy and like maybe like a Julian Assange type,
Nice.
just because of the nature of the government structure and how just deleterious it is to any sort of free speech or going aside, straying outside of the norm of belief or action.
Yeah.
And so that's definitely one of the heavy themes that I wanted to talk about. There's a lot of philosophical elements in the book too.
Yeah.
Philosophy I've always been drawn to philosophy, and maybe it's because I'm rooted in the classics of dystopian sci-fi. Maybe I just enjoy the mental gymnastics. Maybe, it's tough to say, but I definitely try to weave some of these, heavy perspectives and themes into the story as well.
We talked about having likable, relatable characters for your audience and readers to connect with. There's another level when your readers become your fans and then start showing up at conventions and Comic-Cons and all these things dressed in your character's look and feel. And for you as an author to be at these events, we talked about at the beginning, that you do something very unique and you attend these events and it really fits with what you're writing, and you have fans of that style of writing in the building. And then again, to have your own readers and people from your community that love what you do show up in character, like that's got to be the most surreal moment for you as an author, to see your character come through the door and you're just like, oh my gosh, it's them. Like it's the actual character. Tell me more about this, because I think authors who have never considered doing what you do should really think about doing this. This is really inspiring. What does that feel like when a reader decides that they're going to go through all that time and effort to turn themselves into one of your characters?
Well, so I will preface this. So there are two people who have basically cosplayed as my characters, but I was the one who actually commissioned the suits to be made.
Good.
So
Okay.
I won't pretend that
Okay.
it's like that. I haven't gotten to the point where it's a, something that's outside of my control yet.
Okay.
But what I want to do is I want to show basically the fact that, I plan to take this series very seriously, and I don't even plan to stay in just books and comic books. I want to take this into all outlets of media eventually. And bringing the book to life is something that I feel like potential readers can resonate with, that they can see a character in a full suit of space armor,
Yeah.
and the actor looks exactly like the person on the backdrop of my booth. That's kind of, that it's intriguing at the very least.
Yeah.
And so right now it has been purely a marketing,
Smart.
I guess thing, but at some point maybe it will happen organically, and that will be very interesting. What I will say is that the conventions have been an amazing place to interact with potential readers, and just recently I have seen people at different conventions that I met at a prior one, and they've come up to the booth and said, "Where's book 2?" And like that, like really having enjoyed book 1, and that itself is just an amazing feeling. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
I mean, when you get to interact with people at these conventions, I do Comic Cons because there seems to be a lot of sci-fi crossover, and you know, it's been received very well. But when that happens, it's truly a good feeling. And I mentioned this before, you know, I feel like authors, you know, there's always a piece of themselves in the book. Like there's a little bit of my soul in, you know, each book of this series. And when you're able to connect with someone using that as a connection, there's something incredibly gratifying about it. There's no denying it. It's the best feeling in the world.
So tell me the 2 characters that are currently showing up at your events and part of your marketing thing. I think this is brilliant, by the way.
Oh yeah. So the first character, it was a female character that I had a costume for it made, and I had connected with this cosplayer at a convention, and she said, you know, I've walked past this booth a bunch of times. It looks really cool. I kept wanting to stop, but I have my own booth, and so I didn't get a chance. So I was literally packing up at this point. And she said, I really like that character right there on your backdrop. Like, I would love to cosplay her. And I said, well, you know, show me what you've done. Like, I think that's an awesome idea. And she showed me, and incredibly talented, like movie quality costumes. She solders her own LEDs. She makes everything from scratch. And so I was like, absolutely, you tell me what. So we basically kind of, with me kind of directing, she built the suit, and she went to a couple of different conventions dressed as the character, and it went over extremely well. I mean, she actually won one of the cosplay competitions at a convention recently.
Wow.
So that was really cool for kind of the both of us. But she's been a dream to work with, and she really has just amazing talent. And her name is Shanice, and she's Luxty's cosplay. And then the second character that I had made, I worked with another cosplay artist that, funny enough, I had met at the same convention, and he made a character for he made a costume for a character whose name is Daruk Ferris Benson. He's basically the acting commander and general of the authoritarian military police on the planet. And he's this character kind of has a special place in my heart because I based his likeness off of a good friend of mine. His name is Levon Panic. He's a stunt actor and a movie producer. And he allowed me to use his likeness. He just said to me, hey, when we turn this into a movie or a TV series or whatever it's going to be, you better cast me as that role. And I gave him my word. I said, now stay in shape. It might take me a little while to get there, but absolutely. And so the suit was made for Levon. And the guy is a house of a human. He's very, very in shape. He's like 6'3", 270, lean, but very, very muscular. So to have a suit of that size made was a bit of a process. But he actually just joined me for the first time this past weekend at Boston Fan Expo, and we had the suit ready. He dressed in character. People were taking pictures with him, and we just had so much fun doing it. And once again, it's providing the reader a little bit of a glimpse into, the book before they open the book. I guess that's kind of the point. And it's been fun. It's just been so much fun.
Yeah, like that would be, I don't know, that would be really cool to just be in the presence of your characters and see them in real life. Something from your mind. I plan
to do it
right?
more.
I love it. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, and it's been received really well. So like I said, I'm going to keep doing it as long as people keep liking it, because that's the goal. It's all about giving the reader some content they can sink their teeth into, and a storyline that will I guess, a narrative that will really move them.
It's good.
And showing them that, this is something that I really plan to hang my hat on. Because I think anyone would get frustrated with the idea that, like, oh, I read this book and, it obviously alludes to a lot more coming, but then it never comes. Like I definitely want to say here and now, I will finish all 7 books that I have planned in this series.
That's amazing. Okay, for the readers, they're here now. They're super curious now that you're doing this and you're getting your book out there in front of those audiences, and the characters are coming alive in front of us. It's amazing. Let's talk more about the storyline of the book. For a reader that's listening in, they want to connect with you and they want to connect with the story. Let's expand a little bit more about what's happening in the world here. And again, some of those key players that we're going to come across in the first book. Where do we start? How's the story begin?
So the story begins in the year 2701. It basically, the entire narrative you're following is happening on the 7th colonized human planet in our galaxy. And this is all after basically the golden age of space exploration, which was initiated by the discovery of an exotic matter not native to Earth, which they call Vitalerium, the name of the series. Basically allows for interplanetary travel, the population booms, we start colonizing new planets, we expand into the cosmos, all the fun things that maybe it's like a deep-seated want of mine that I like to go out and explore and, hop on the spaceship and, explore the cosmos that, made me want to write like this. But, I definitely wanted to write something that was spacefaring. And on the 7th colonized planet, you end up following roughneck freelancer Roman Matthews. He's basically a mercenary. And this guy is extremely rough around the edges. Certainly you'd categorize him as a morally gray protagonist. He's kind of a lost soul. He's doing odd jobs for local gangs when you
first
meet him, basically so he can blow his money on booze and whores and forget.
Yeah. Right.
Because he's had such a traumatic life that led him to this point. And so, like I said, when you meet him, he's sort of just floating. But the circumstances of his work actually embroil him in a massive conspiracy that has the authoritarian government of his planet hunting him. And it all stems from a near-death experience that he has while he's out on a job. And so as he's going through the story, he's basically trying to figure out how to survive as he builds a little bit of a team of allies, both in the underworld and in the public eye. And really, he's just trying to figure out kind of what happened to him, because such a unique phenomenon occurs, one that's never been seen before. And so that's kind of where the story starts, and I guess the path that it takes. And again, I mentioned it was multi-narrative, so you don't just follow Roman, the freelancer, you follow a number of politicians. You get a feel for the political turmoil that's brewing in the background between the planets. You follow an intergalactic pop star as she's touring from planet to planet with her posse. And they're kind of a little more than meets the eye. They kind of have a finger in everything just because of the fact that they have so much access with their fame. And you follow a physicist who's working for the authoritarian government. And you just get to learn a lot about these characters and a lot about the world that you're basically diving headfirst into. Which, some areas of the world are incredibly lush and elegant, and, people live like kings. And then some areas of the world, the majority of the world really, is kind of like high-tech poverty. And you get to see what it's like from both perspectives. And you get to see that things aren't always so black and white, even from the side of people within the authoritarian government. Yes, the structure is not necessarily is certainly not a good one. And there's evil, true evil that is done, but some people aren't. Some people are just, they're in the system, they're born into the system, and they are just doing their job. They're doing their job because they've got a family at home, and this is kind of all they know. And so I do kind of blur the lines there a little bit, both on the antagonist and the protagonist side. Because the protagonist, like I mentioned, he's morally gray as well. And there's a scene in the book where he's literally torturing someone. It's a dark story, yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's but you're going to get a little bit of everything out of this. You get your action. It is a sci-fi space opera. You get those elements of cosmic thriller, like I mentioned. You get political intrigue. You get moments of comedy here and there. Yeah. You get a little bit of romance. I certainly put the protagonist through hell. I had to give him a little bit of a reprieve. All of those are kind of packed into this book. And I went through painstaking effort to make sure that it all flowed well and went, kind of smoothly from, one element to the next.
So how does the book start off? Like with a bang, like you're in, right? Like a James Bond action go? Or is it like a slow burn to kind of start off the book? How does it begin?
So the book actually starts off with, a few pages of what I would call history.
Okay.
And I actually titled it History of the Final Bloody Frontier, which, being space. And it's basically about how humanity got from where we are now to where we are 700 years in the future as a multi-planetary society. Yeah. And it involves massive societal wins. It involves, expansion of industry. It involves war. It involves, basically the breaking of ties between planets. It involves subterfuge. And it ultimately plants us in the year 2701, where, we will ultimately get put in the front seat of Roman Matthews. I also have a short little prologue that alludes to, I would say, some much bigger elements that are brewing in the background, and I leave it on a little bit of a mysterious note. And I do that on purpose. You figure out a little bit more of what that relates to at the end of the book. Yeah. And then you join Roman Matthews, and you join him. When you first meet him, he's a teenager, kind of your normal teenager. He's in school, he's playing sports, he's, a normal kid. And he has good parents who raised him on good values. And you see the sharp turn that his life takes that ultimately leads him to become kind of, like I said, a mercenary, someone who has a talent for violence and certainly the remnants of discipline, immense talent, but, lacking in direction. And part of the story, you're really watching him rediscover his purpose in life through, more horrible circumstances that he's kind of thrust into. And some of them are overt, some of them are a little more subtle, and you get to see him grow as a person throughout this book, but definitely even more so the entire series. It's basically Vitalerium as a series story arc. You're basically following the emergence of a future mythological hero, essentially someone who becomes the most important person in future history. And you get to see it from the very start to the very end. Like I said, I've always enjoyed, mythology and kind of, I guess, just the stories that were told and the civilizations that they're tied to. And so I wanted to create something, but I wanted to make it in the future.
How much of the sitting in the plane, looking out the window here and there between writing, impacted kind of the story? You're talking a lot about travel, different perspective, different worlds. When you're up 30, 40,000 feet looking down, the world looks a lot different from that perspective. Did any of that kind of feed into the story at all?
I mean, sure.
Yeah.
I will say, I think I like to joke and say that like I was that much closer to space. That's why, where the inspiration came from. But really, I think it was the time for me to disconnect and
Yeah.
really just heavily focus on something for a few hours.
Yeah.
Put my headphones in, listen to the music I like and let it guide me. I would say music is also a big inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big metalhead. I've always been, so there's a lot of this, even a playlist the playlist I listened to when I wrote the book is, on my website. And I feel like some of the feeling that you get from some of the music that I listen to is something that I tried to instill into the book. Maybe that's why it's so dark.
Mm.
But as far as, perspective of, the world and things like that, definitely you get kind of a different perspective when you're looking down from high up, right?
Yeah.
And double that when you project your thoughts even bigger than that into space. I mean,
Yeah.
we're there are billions of galaxies just like ours, and we haven't even, in the book, in the year 2700, we haven't really expanded beyond our own galaxy at that point. And so that's definitely something that I incorporated into the book as well. And you'll start to see inklings of that in the first book, but you'll start to really see it once book 2 comes out. And I'm hoping to have that out by early next year. And very much so in the subsequent books in the series, because I actually based, I kind of put an element of that into a religion that I based in the future. I mean, when you're world building, and you want to have a full, real feeling world, you've got to create every element of it. And so I had to think, well, what does a religion look like 700 years from now? And so I made it heavily based in the philosophy of how grand the universe is and how small and insignificant we are in the scope of things.
Yeah.
And I basically related it to, you'll see a lot of references to a pendulum in the book. And essentially it's the pendulum kind of stands for balance, where, the universe almost corrects itself, achieves equilibrium like a swinging pendulum. So once the pendulum swings too far in one direction, the universe corrects itself and it begins swinging in the other. And, on a scale that we cannot even fathom. And so that's where the kind of religion side comes about from it. So you get to see a little bit of how, a seer, they're called seers, the priests, so to speak, they're called seers, how they view the religion versus how the religion acts kind of from the top down. You get a little glimpse of that in book 2 as well. And, same tricks and tropes that you've probably seen before from maybe religion in real life. But the whole idea is that, balance is kind of the ultimate. And, a star explodes on one side of the universe, that takes out 10 planets with life on them. And then, only for another star to be born on the other side of the universe, which gives life to, 10,000 more species.
Yeah.
And kind of balance on that scale of things. And that was kind of fun for me, that whole process, and tying in some of those themes to the way that people act and the things that people talk about. Yeah.
Is Roman on his own personal journey to find balance?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, that's one of the things you pick up on very
Yeah.
clearly when you're meeting him as an adult.
Yeah.
It's that he really doesn't have it
Yeah.
at all. He's he's basically just skating through life, and that's something that is unsustainable. And so, perhaps he is in a philosophical sense, kind of the tool of the universe to recorrect itself.
Very interesting. Because when you were
Yeah.
describing him before, he sounded like his life was not balanced. He was leaning one way, and it's not great for him. And he's trying. Maybe he doesn't realize that there's another side to who he is, and that he needs to develop that a little bit more, and maybe move away from some of the gray areas in life that's holding him back. Maybe. So it sounds a little imbalanced. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And it's certainly more like a lot of the good values that he once had that he probably was raised on have been put on the back burner so long that he's forgotten how to embody them. And once again, kind of, finding his way through the circumstances that he's thrust into in the narrative of the book.
Yeah, I love it. Nick, so for people that want to follow the journey of the book, they want to be there for all 7, at this point, scheduled books in the series, and maybe even to find out where you're going to be next so they can meet some of these characters if they're with you at the next convention or thing in your area. Where do we go to follow your story and stay connected with you after this conversation today?
Yeah, so you can find the book is called Vitalerium Descent into the Void. It's book 1 of the 7-book series. You can find that on Amazon. The audiobook is on Amazon and Audible. You can also find the book on my website, which is vitaleriumseries.com. And you can also find comic books there. I have a comic book adaptation series now of the book. Once again, I said, I plan to take this to all outlets of media, and that was the next logical step. On social media, I'm at Vitalerium Series. And yeah, it's really easy to get a hold of. And for all of the listeners out there, if you pick up a copy, I really hope you enjoy it.
Give us a little sneak peek into 2701. What's it like? Come on, I want to know. Give me your big view. What's the world like? What are the worlds like in 2701?
The world has, at least my world,
Yeah.
we almost see a halt in the golden age of space exploration, as I kind of, mentioned before, due to the shift in power to more super centralized structures. There is a lot of subterfuge that's being used to basically contain humanity and expand it only at the will and the choice of, the ultra powerful, who are sometimes operating things behind the scenes and using puppets for basically their bidding. You see a little bit of how beautiful and how unbelievably magical the advanced technology can be, and what type of lives people can lead. And then you see at the same time how rough it can be, and what some of that, basically the flip side of that coin. And part of this story really dives into, what happens when, sometimes these powerful organizations go too far, trying to accomplish some of their Machiavellian, I guess, goals. And some of the unbelievably horrific goals that they actually might have. And that's at the expense of, everyone. And so that's certainly something that I did. Like I said, I'm grounded in dystopian sci-fi, so I wanted to have elements of that there. But I also wanted to find a way to perhaps write our way out of it. You know, I think sci-fi is a great outlet for that, for exploring all the ways we can fuck it up, to be quite honest. And then hopefully being a lesson that, you know, a lesson of the pitfalls that we can avoid potentially.
Awesome. Nick, thank you so much for being here on the show and for a very creative way of, again, bringing characters to life. I think that's amazing. I want to come and see you somewhere at your desk and with your books there stacked there and see these characters standing next to you. I think that's a great visual. And again, I just love what you're writing. And I love how a story begins, again, on a plane, back and forth. And you're like, I'm going to use this time to create this world. And now it's here. And now you have the joy of continuing the story over the 7-book series. It's exciting for you. I'm really excited for you and where this is going to take you. There's good things ahead for you. There's no way it's not going to happen. So I'm just excited that I've had a chance to talk to you earlier in the process, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to get past your people once this really, really takes off for you, because good things are ahead for you. I just know it.
I can't thank you enough for saying that. It was very kind words. Thank you, Dave. And yeah, we'll see how it all turns out. I just know that I'm pedal to the metal until I get to where I want to be.
Excellent. We'll have links to Nick's website, to the book, to the playlist, which I think is outstanding. That's a great idea. So grab the playlist as well when you have the book. Hit play and start reading, and you'll get a little sense of the tone of the book as well. I think that's a brilliant idea as well, Nick. So thank you so much for being on the show. Keep us in mind. Love to have you back in the future as new books come out. I'd love to have you back and get an update and see where we are next. So I'll keep the door open. I'll keep a seat for you.
Absolutely. I'd love to do it again.
Excellent.
This was a lot of fun.
Excellent. Everyone, all information for Nick in the book and everything else coming in the future. You can find it now and in the future as well. And if you're listening in 2701, hopefully we served you well. So thank you, Nick. Appreciate you being on the show.
Thanks again, Dave.
Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast. Glad to have you here. I just want to let you know that you can always find out what we're doing live in the moment by going to our YouTube channel. Head over to livingthenextchapter.com. There'll be a link right there. Head over to our YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, do all the things that all the YouTubers love to say. And in our YouTube channel, a couple things. You're going to get advanced listens. You're going to get the episodes that we're working on in real time. So we record and post daily on our YouTube channel. I'd love for you to give us a follow over there as well. We're making playlists. We have over 500 episodes. So finding the right episode for you, we're trying to group things into playlists. So if you like children's books, if you like business, you like historical fiction, we're grouping our authors together to make it a little easier for you to find your favorite next author. So head over to livingthenextchapter.com. And again, I'd love to hear from you. Hearing from the listeners of the show is great. And I just want to say thank you for being a part of the podcast family. And I look forward to having you back for the next episode. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate your time and your listen. Take care.